About 80 Kenya Revenue Authority staff spent the night in various police stations in Nairobi. 38 of them were arraigned yesterday in court facing various corruption-related offences and will be detained at were detained at 3 police stations. Another 40 who surrendered to the DCI yesterday were detained for close to 12 hours and later transferred to various police stations in the biggest graft purge at the tax agency. Now, in the wake of the graft purge at the KRA, its top leadership spent most of the day in closed-door crisis meetings, even as pressure mounts on Commissioner General John Njiraini to step down after his extended term expired. A number of KRA staff kept off their workstations, slowing down operations there. Ken Mijungu also reports that a social media account has been created in solidarity with the staff under investigation.
While the courts were swelling with Kenya Revenue Authority staff battling corruption charges, at the Hemingway's Hotel in Karen, the flurry called the top KRA management to a crisis meeting following graft allegations and a cleanup that looms ominously over the Times Towers. Despite this whirl of activity, little else was going on in a number of the Kenya Revenue Authority offices. What began on Friday with arrests has now morphed into a paralysis of services at the Kenya Revenue Authority as uncertainty gripped its workers who abandoned their workstations for the better part of the day. In reaction to these happenings, the Kenya Revenue Authority board and managers took their meeting to Karen, where the media was kept at bay, but sources within the meeting said it was tense, as an accusing finger was pointed at the management, ostensibly for failing to rein in on the junior staff. Some junior staff, however, want the management, specifically Commissioner General John Njiraini, to take responsibility for their crumbling house. They accuse him of instigating the arrests to divert attention from the imminent exit from the tax agency. Njiraini, whose term was extended, was set to leave last Thursday, but he is staying put in the middle of the crisis that has crippled services. His term had ended last year when he attained the retirement age. In 2017, just at the end of his term, the entire Kenya Revenue Authority board was dramatically sent home. The board had resolved to replace him after he attained the mandatory retirement age of 60. He was given a 2-month extension after he agreed to forfeit his leave days. The Edward Sambili-led board was then replaced by the Francis Mudaura-led board, who also gave him notice to leave, but no suitable replacement was found. Activist Okia Mtata had also moved to court to seek orders to compel the Kenya Revenue Authority to send Njiraini on terminal leave and appoint someone in acting capacity. But the court dismissed this application, allowing him to continue serving as the Commissioner General, noting he was appointed to serve a fixed term that came to an end. He was due to leave when these arrests happened. Those arrested on Friday were tried in court. Their colleagues attended the hearings in solidarity, saying those were only victims. Njiraini was appointed in 2012 by then Finance Minister Uhuru Kenyatta. He has served for 7 years instead of the constitutional 6 years. Since his entry, the Kenya Revenue Authority has perennially missed its target and continues to face the daunting task of raising revenue to finance the government's expenditure. The Kenya Revenue Authority is also accused of enabling pilferage of public funds and not putting measures in place to ensure tax compliance. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
Right, we want to hear from our panelists this morning as far as KRA and revenue collection is concerned in this country. This biggest scam as well coming to the fore right now, the corruption that is so entrenched, backed into the system of revenue collection in this country. Allow me to introduce our panelists once more. We have with us this morning Jacob Midio, who is a former member of Parliament for a game. Also, we do have with us Senator Kimani Matangi, the Senator for Kiambu. We do have with us as well Otena Amolo, who is a member of Parliament for Rarieda. We have Dr. Eselisimi, who is a member of Parliament for Tongaren. And also, we do have with us this morning Aaron Cheriot, who is a Senator for Kericho. Once more, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Right, let's just begin with what is happening within KRA right now. Look at the tenure of Njiraini. his extension as well was somewhat controversial. We had also activists Okiya Omtata moving to courts to challenge the extension of Njiraini, but we saw that also was stayed, and now here he is again. People are saying now he should step down because now corruption is under your feet as far as leadership is concerned within KRA. Do you think Njiraini overstayed? Sometimes, as they normally say, it is too much welcome or too much knocks on the doors. Where's the welcome? Let's begin with you, Jacomedio.
Well, I don't think it was his choice to stay further. The way they did it is, first of all, against the law. I think Uhuru had no powers to keep him there. In any case, he had been under-delivering from day one. He has never achieved his target.
Yes.
But to extend him, to keep on keeping him there must be some corrupt reasons why the president thinks they should disobey the law and keep him there to keep doing wrong. But this issue of KRA debacle, you know, for the last so many years, there are so many people you meet who work for KRA who are at the junior most level and they are very rich. I really want to congratulate the DCI, and hopefully the DPP will do a good job, because Kenyans are really suffering because of overtaxation. And to realize that the tax collector is the thief, it's not a good feeling. It does not inspire confidence. And I think the president could do more. I think Njiraini needs to go. I think people are saying that the fight on corruption has stalled. I don't think so. I think the DCI and the DPP are doing a very good job under very difficult political circumstances. I think it is the executive led by the presidency which is not doing the right thing. For example, Dibal, why are ministers mentioned, beginning with the Minister for Finance, in all this graft, still in office, and the president dares tell Kenyans that he wants to follow due process of the law? You know, it's like saying that the executive is surrendering its supervisory powers over the executive to the courts. Courts don't determine the integrity of the executive systems. I think it is the power, the buck stops with the president, and that's why I love when Musalia says, bring out the handcuffs. You know, all these small people, and the only thing I want to encourage the DCI to keep doing is to arrest these small people. The obvious corruption. Kenyans are really suffering out here.
Yeah. Right, Dr. Selesme.
You know, matters KRA are very interesting. If you those of us who read the Bible, I'm a bit rusty on it, but I remember quite a bit of it, where they say, give unto Caesar what is Caesar, and to God what is God's. But then also you realize that the Bible is one of the places that the tax collector is condemned. Actually, the tax collector is condemned in the Bible.
But
so
by
who
condemns the tax collector?
Well, I don't remember the exact book, but there's a place where they mention that the tax collector might not see the kingdom of heaven. But although that's said and done,
that verse I've never read it in the Bible.
Even
Pastor Aaron Cheriot says no. Yeah, I can see.
When you look at such things and then you are an employee of KRA, of course that's also stress on its own. But however, I think Njiraini's reign has been a bit rocky, and that's perhaps why he has been failing to meet his targets. One, the targets were set very high, and then they keep on bringing other taxes on stream, which he has to collect. Then he went ahead, and the senior management, he decided that they'll no longer be permanent and pensionable, they'll work on contract. Now, when you are going to work on contract, that means your future is not assured, your retirement is not assured. Definitely the temptation to pilfer will go up. I think that was a wrong move. they should have remained permanent and pensionable rather than putting them on contract, because that perhaps makes them insecure in the sense that they don't know whether their contract will be renewed or not. So you have to pilfer a bit to boost your nest egg in the case you are not, your contract is not renewed. I think that's the wrong agency to go that way and then set them targets that might be impossible to meet. Then as you increase the targets, the more they pilfer. I think keeping Jiraini in place was wrong, and President Uhuru Kenyatta seems to be in that habit of keeping people in certain key dockets longer than they should be there. And this actually damages the institution, because you find that if you don't open space so that people's career progression is assured, once this one stagnates there, then others have to exit because they cannot rise up. Because that one promotion, this one promotion to the top opens up some spaces. And this has happened even in the military. You remember the person who came up with the idea of people retiring at a certain age, the Tonje rules. When Moi wanted to extend Tonje's rule, he said, no, I brought this up, I cannot disobey it. But then from there, Kibaki and then now Uhuru, they keep on renewing the service of the military boss. And know the military rules are such that if you are at a certain age, you cannot be beyond that age if you are in that rank. So that means that people fall out. They leave the military. So the same thing with KRA. You retain this person there, you're not opening space for upward progression. And people will feel frustrated. When people feel frustrated, they'll want to undermine the person you have retained there. So definitely the other people under Jiraini who feel that they would get that job, they will not particularly toe the line. So I think it's what I call an administration issue, if people really understand how organization should work. So I think even it behoves people like Jiraini, who is well educated, well traveled, he knows these things. It's people like him who should actually decline any renewal and say, no, I will not take any renewal. And then he should before he leaves, he should reverse that contract thing. It's not good for the organization.
It's not good. Yeah. Okay, let's hear from Meron Cheriot.
Well, to help my friend Eseli, I think in his reference to tax collectors and the Bible, the closest proximity to what he was trying to say will be that corruption amongst the ranks of tax collectors has existed even from the days of the Bible. That's what yeah, because even Zacchaeus, we read about the short man, was a tax collector. And when they finally met with Jesus, he decided to return to the people because he used to take more than that which was owed to the government. So Eseli is right to that extent. That the tax collectors were condemned even from back in the day. Anyway, I am not so old enough to understand the history of KRA and previous managers, but since the days of the previous Commissioner General, Michael Waweru, and now John Jiraini, if you compare to especially what Michael found, you remember he came into office around 2003, just after the exit of KANU government and that of President Moi, where we hardly used to collect maybe 200 to 300 billion, 220 billion. That's what Jakoi reminds me, and I have no reason to doubt. To what Michael Waweru pushed it to, almost 3-4-fold, by one, increasing the tax base and trying to seal the loopholes of corruption. In my mind, though I may not have all the material facts to know what is it that may have stalled this kind of progression, John Jiraini does not seem to have enjoyed that kind of success that his predecessor enjoyed. There may have been many other reasons that may be accounted for this, but I want to believe that, one, I agree with my colleagues that his continued stay in office is not good for the country. Because if you are not meeting your target in any ordinary job, even a milkman, so long as you're not able to reach the targets that are set out for you, there's no reason to continue keeping you on the job. Therefore, it is really unfortunate on what is happening. The move by DCI, it is, I must say it is welcome, because a few weeks ago, Dibal, we were in Kisumu for the legislative summit. And we were boarded in somewhere as senators. I don't know if Wamatangi was there. I don't recall seeing him. And it was this lavish new restaurant that had come up. So just as we were talking, people inquired, and this is such a beautiful establishment. Who owns it? The people around there, they told us he's not well known, but he works with KRA, as if that was to mean that is enough explanation. You should be able to understand. And I'm sure it is a common occurrence in many of our villages, where when a new home that is more than modest shows up, the enough reason that will suffice your inquisitive nature will be told that this particular person works at KRA, and therefore you shouldn't question beyond that. She'll be able to understand. So it tells you that these things actually do exist. It's only my hope that, as we have always said, that there will be no vigilante justice, as the president referred to during his State of the Nation address. You know, when you swoop 70, 80 people, chances are there may be one or two who ought not to have been there. And there may also be 5 or 10 others who ought to have been among those who are caught, but for one reason or the other they escaped. Therefore, it is welcome to the extent that if it tries to bring efficiency. My biggest regret, though, during the tenure of Njeraini, is this: our tax regime as a country continues to rely on very few individuals. We are told it's less than 3 million Kenyans who actually pay taxes beyond that, say VAT, because everybody pays VAT by virtue of purchasing goods and services within the country. But beyond that, only about 2 to 3 million Kenyans have tax records to their name. Therefore, KRA under Njeraini's term has not been able to significantly grow this, especially, for example, in the SME sector, where you find many of the businesses that are owned by young people do not meet some of the requirements that are set by KRA because of not very proper, detailed policies. Therefore, it is my sincere hope that the person that will take over, one, will seek to grow this base so that you don't have over-reliance on few people, such that if the government wants to build houses, you go again back to these 3 million people that are paying. And a proper or a better way of doing this would be to ensure that you have as many people as possible paying their taxes, because we are told that at least the two things that are certain in life are taxes and death.
Thank you.
And that ought to be true even in our country.
Right, thank you. Let's hear from Dr. Otena Molo.
Thank you. There are a few things to be said. First, as a matter of policy. And we have seen instances, and this is not the only one, where persons reach the mandatory retirement age of 60 and their contract or their tenure is irregularly extended. When we say 60 is mandatory, it should be mandatory. The idea of selective extension of tenure based on loyalty or friendship, whether it's to the president or any other appointing authority, is wrong. If people are to retire at 60, they should retire at 60. Remember, first of all, we increased the retirement age. It used to be 50. By adding another 10 years, we have meaningfully locked out thousands, hundreds of thousands of young people who would otherwise get those jobs. Now, if you even get to 60, and then it keeps being extended irregularly, for every extension and every year, it locks up many more people. And it also invites people to have direct loyalty, not to the constitution, not to the people, but to that person who extends your tenure. There is no difference between that and this whole idea that we've seen in some countries of extending the term limits. That now, because the president is performing so well, now you can add him or her another term limit. It is completely wrong. Secondly, when I looked at the incidents of arresting about 100 employees of KRA, it demonstrates systemic failure. It demonstrates that internally, all the internal mechanisms of curbing corruption, of avoiding this kind of things collapsed. The fact that it should take an external entity under espionage to discover this means the internal systems of KRA are gone. And if their internal systems are gone, then it means their external systems of detecting non-compliance and tax evasion must equally be gone. And that is where the problem lies. There are certain areas that should always have systemic audits, in fact, a lifestyle audit. The same way we attempted a lifestyle audit with the police, the same way we keep urging that even us as politicians, we should be subjected to lifestyle audits, the same way I believe the judiciary should be and was subjected to a lifestyle audit, employees of KRA from the highest to the lowest should systemically and routinely be subjected to a lifestyle audit.
But I thought that exercise was there before. It seems also it tapered off along the way.
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, and that's the point I'm making, a lifestyle audit should not be a lifetime event. It should be routine. If it is said to be every year or every 2 years, then this kind of thing would be detected. Thirdly, I think one of the things we've seen in recent times is politicization of tax collection. If it is believed that you are now being rough or you have fallen out with what you would call the government, then suddenly it is discovered that you've not paid taxes for the last 8, 9, 10 years. But as long as you are on the narrow path of agreement, you go scot-free. I can tell you that in my previous life as ombudsman, I came across cases which were filed where individuals who own big companies owe this country billions of shillings in tax collection. But those billions are not paid because they are believed to be proximate to the presidency, to the executive, to the government. And if you go and you look keenly, you will find that for every tax that about 100,000 Kenyans should pay, you find there's one individual who owes the equivalent of what 5 million Kenyans ought to pay in taxes, but they're not paying.
They're not paying, yeah.
Lastly, is a legal phenomenon that I saw. I saw that when these persons were taken to court, it's very interesting. They looked like mercenaries because they are all in hoods, they are all in sunglasses, and it's quite a spectacle. I don't know who ever advised anybody who was charged that the best way to camouflage yourself so that no one will ever know you are taken to court is to put these hoodies and tie these scarves and these sunglasses, because if anybody wants to know that you are charged, they will know, your image notwithstanding. And in any event, until you are proved guilty, you are innocent. These kind of spectacles make us look like a very interesting nation, that you have people who are supposed to be collecting taxes, about 100 of them are then suddenly taken, and then they all appear in court with hoodies and sunglasses, and I mean it's quite a sight to behold. For the wrong reasons.
For the wrong reasons.
Yes.
Let's say from Wamatangi before. Wamatangi now takes a special umbrage with us that yes, he was late. Good to see you, sir. We missed you last week.
Every time when Jacoy arrives before me, that is interpreted to be late. and of course,
today
I arrived before Otende Amolo. And I was just about to ask Jacoy how come, and today he's looking exceptionally bright. So I believe he must have retired home very early yesterday.
Yes, I did. He was here by 6.
Dimal, just a few things that I would add to what my colleagues have said. Recently, I sat in a meeting in Parliament where the multi-agency task force was invited, and they were making submissions before the Committee of Parliament on Legal Affairs. And one of the proposals that they had was a request that Parliament looks at the possibility of amending the current law that requires, or that now it should require, that if a businessman or any business group operating an ongoing business and they are in tax arrears and they have not paid, that they should be empowered to have that person's passport confiscated and that person arrested and barred from travel. And I was asking them, tell me, your work is tax collection. It is to increase the base of revenue and the amount you have in your kitty. How does having somebody who is running an ongoing business that has concerns which are current, having him detained and his passport confiscated, how does that help? And what I'm trying to say, because then my proposal was, why not have an arrangement that says that you want the law extended or expanded in a way that that person's or that company's assets or their incoming revenue, a part of it would be defrayed to, by law, then pay up what the arrears are, such that you'd have the businesses ongoing. What I'm saying is this, that I think for the 7 years that Njeraine has been there, he has done what he's had to do. He served his 2 terms, 3-year each, and then had that one extension. But for almost every institution, even in Parliament itself, if you look at any member, for example, who has served 2, 3, 4 terms in one office, automatically it gets to a point whereby you are no longer as useful as you should be. Once you get and that's even why you see, even for presidents, for example, like what happened the other day in Sudan. That once you have outlived your welcome or your usefulness, you cease being an asset to that entity. And if you look at, for example, at the approach, I'm happy to report, I watched a clip the other day of the Zambian president giving a lecture to a big consortium of business people. And he was telling them how they have decided in their country now to revamp their economy by cutting taxes, yes, and slashing some of them and removing a lot of it, including VAT. We have dropped this, we have slashed this, and he was trying to explain now how this is going to be a new approach to help government to collect more. Dibal, let me also say that some of the case role models of governments and countries that have succeeded have actually succeeded on the opposite of the approach, for example, that we have right now, on having a confrontational, punitive tax approach towards collection. If you look at Dubai, is a case example. It's talked all over in the whole world. It's tax-free, it's whatever. What I'm saying is, I don't think that where we are right now, with the current demands in the current stage, that KRA and its current leadership have metamorphosized with the marketplace, with the new demands, in a way that they would be helping this country now grow as our budget has been growing. They need to expand their thinking and change their approach. Actually, I would tell you, if we changed our approach and made our tax collection more friendly, in a way that you would encourage business people to do more business in a freer environment and collect less but many times over, then we would have definitely a better way and a richer task basket. So what I'm saying is, in short, is I believe that it is time, in my view, this is expected. Once you have signed and been appointed to an office, that office has a tenure. It's a 3-year term. It can be renewed once, but once that is over, it should be clear that it's time to leave. And so I believe as Njeraine exits, he's done his work. As you reported sometimes in the press, he didn't meet his targets as many times. But of course, we also have to really also acknowledge that our budget, Dibal, has grown all this time. Every time he's had higher targets, it's only that he was not able to meet them, and maybe he doesn't have the leeway like counties have of revising the targets. But
Otiende raises a very also key point when he says the politicization of taxes in this country. Maybe the discussion also we should be looking at is the tenure of Njeraine and the extension of it.
Yes.
Because what pundits have it is that, yes, this particular extension was due to politics. That, yes, there was the process of getting a new chairman, but it was discovered along the way that actually that particular chairman, there was some vested interest because he was a brother to so-and-so in the upper reaches of government, and this particular person also is not paying taxes, huge tidy sum of money as taxes. And so this was actually sort of, getting a person who will try and maybe galvanize this person because of his taxes. These are the issues I want you to tell me this morning.
Just quickly then, as I finalize, that point by Otiende Amolo is a very important one. It's a true one. It's been happening. And I believe one of those reasons then of delaying his exit with the importance of that position, if it be that delay was intended to make sure that the right person occupies that office, that you don't have somebody who is going to make the situation worse, then so be it. But you see, as the point was made by Otiende, that has been true of this country. I remember sitting in the House of Senate with now the current ambassador to Nigeria, the former senator for Migori, Wilfred Machage. And he was telling us a story of how one day he went home because he had simply fallen out of favor with the current regime then. And when he arrived to his house, he found the DC waiting for him outside his gate. And then when he went to greet the DC, he was handed a letter. And that letter was telling him, your loan has been recalled, so let us walk to KCB together, so that he go and pay. And when they arrived at the local branch of KCB, because he didn't have the money, he was told, now let us go, auctioneers are already waiting in your house to take away the tractors that you had bought with this loan. And you know, he told a very hilarious story. What I'm saying is that what Otiende Amolo is saying has been true for a long, long time. Sometimes it happens once if you fall out of favor, you know, politically, you could be visited, those kind of things. But I believe that it is the wrong approach. Taxes, Dibal, let me emphasize that point. That if we want to win this, we must become modern. Look at even how companies are making big amounts, like for example, like Amazon, by collecting pennies from everybody, and then you find that they become the richest company in the whole world. So if we change the approach of being confrontational, of making sure that when we want to collect more, we are taking people to jail, then we are going to collect more.
Let's wind up on this.
Yes, I agree with Matangi on one thing. This and Otiende, the politicization of tax collection. Remember the recent case of this guy of Thika, the liquor manufacturer.
Yes.
It's called
Humphrey
Karaoke.
Yes.
He, I believe, is the one Matangi is referring to, that his passport was being confiscated, he was being chased all around, and yet he's one of the biggest employers in the country. What would not make sense for KRA to go there if they are owed and set up a desk and collect at source? Keep Kenyans on the job and collect your money. Simple solution. You cannot be hanged because you did not pay. If there is another benefit, we are accruing from you. By closing his factory, you have rendered Kenyans useless, which Kenyans pay taxes. So something is not right with the thinking of the state, because I don't think it is Njiraini, I think it is the Jubilee government that has no idea how to move the state forward. And what Aaron Cheriot has said about my friend Waweru, Michael Waweru, he took the tax which was being collected from 220 billion when Moi left to over 2 trillion by the time he was leaving. So he had an idea. Even that time KRA was very happy. I used to sit in parliamentary committee of finance and interacted a lot with KRA. What is happening today, I don't even think it is fair to blame KRA alone. We must look at the big picture, and I want to disagree with Omatangi when he says KRA has problems, but he saw Zambian president. Why is it when it is in Kenya it is KRA, and when it is Zambia it is the president who is doing well?
Okay, we need to take a short break right now, but also the question is when the KRA board wanted to replace Njiraini, we saw also President Uhuru Kenyatta disbanding this particular board. Then we wondered why. Briefly, before we take a short break.
I agree with Wamatangi and what people have said about confrontational and punitive methods of collecting tax. This is deliberate so that it drives the corruption. Because if you make it punitive and confrontational, then you as a taxpayer, you fear being handled like that, and when they come and tell you, give us something, we stop doing this. So it actually fuels the whole thing. It's part of the corruption game. As for Jubilee, they do have a problem with succession. They don't seem to have a pool of people for respective areas that when this one's term is ending, this one can take over. They seem to lack HR advisors. That's why they keep on holding on to whoever they have, because they don't seem to have somebody to replace that person. In very many institutions, you'll come across that. Until recently is when there was a long list of new appointees. Suddenly, pop, and very many of them, you wonder how it happened. It's because Jubilee's arrangement on HR in its institutions is wrong-headed.
Right. Maybe just to read some of reactions here on Twitter. We have Kaikai Kalbusia saying that the Bible is clear on tax collection, or tax collector, and the prostitute refer to Matthew 21:31. The magnitude of corruption at KRA is extremely high. The rip-offs is estimated to be over 600 billion shillings yearly in tax refund. And well, this is Matthew 21:31. It says, which of the two did what his father wanted? The first, they answered. Jesus said to them, truly I tell you, the tax collectors and the prostitutes are entering the kingdom of God ahead of you. Right? But of course, you have to actually read this in its context, so that now we are not really saying the tax collectors and the prostitutes will enter the kingdom of God. Right? That will be actually taking the context of this particular text, right, and using it as a pretext. Right? So make sure you read the entire chapter for you to get to understand this as well. When we circle back, we continue with the discussion and looking at a raft of other issues as well, as far as politics is concerned in the country right now. Don't go away. Much more coming up on the other side of the break.